peace is mine, leaning on the everlasting arms. Leaning, leaning, safe and secure from all alarms. Leaning, leaning, leaning on the everlasting arms.
Oh, how sweet to walk in this pilgrim way, leaning on the everlasting arms. Oh, how bright the path grows from day to day, leaning on the everlasting arms.
Leaning, leaning, safe and secure from all alarms. Leaning, leaning, leaning on the everlasting arms. What have I to dread? What have I to fear? Leaning on the everlasting arms. I have blessed peace with my Lord so near. Leaning on the everlasting arms. Leaning on Jesus, safe and secure from all alarms. Leaning on Jesus, leaning.
Scripture is Mark 13:1.
As he was leaving the temple, one of his disciples said to him, "Look, teacher, what massive stones, what magnificent buildings. Do you see all these great buildings?" replied Jesus. "Not one stone here will be left on another. Every one will be thrown down." As Jesus was sitting on the Mount of Olives opposite the temple, Peter, James, John, and Andrew asked him privately, "Tell us, when will these things happen? And what will be the sign of that they are all about to be fulfilled?" Jesus said to them, "Watch out that no one deceives you. Many will come in my name, claiming I am he, and he will deceive many. When you hear of the wars and rumors of wars, do not be alarmed. Such things must happen, but the end is still to come. Nation will rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. There will be earthquakes in various places and famines. These are the beginning of birth pains. You must be on your guard. You will be handed over to the local councils and flogged in the synagogues. On account of me, you will stand before governors and kings as witnesses to them, and the gospels must first be preached to all nations. When you are arrested and brought to trial, do not worry beforehand about what you say. Just say whatever is given you at that time, for it is not you speaking, but the Holy Spirit. Brother will betray brother to death, and as a father his child. Children will rebel against their parents and have them put to death. All men will hate you because of me, but he who stands firm to the end will be saved."
Well, I got about halfway through this sermon today and realized that I was not going to get to cover all of the verses. So I divided the thing in half, and we're just going with the first half. So Michael did do the right thing. He only read through verse 13, and we'll cover the next portion of this next week. The tension has been building in the book of Mark as Jesus has prophesied that he would be crucified and then resurrected, as he has marched into the temple and thrown out the money changers and has argued with the Sadducees and the Pharisees and all of those people and put them down. The tension has been on the rise all through this book, and it is approaching its climax. But before that happens, the hostile examiners retreat. Jesus leaves the temple. He goes up to the top of the Mount of Olives, and he tells us not about his own suffering, but about the suffering of those people who would follow him. Because we need to know that not only is Jesus on the course for suffering in this world, but we are as well. And we need to understand that the rule in our life is that Christians suffer for their master. At the very least, you are suffering since the day you became a believer to the day you go home to be with him. You are absent from the Father. And that is a horrible thing. But it is what God has asked us to do, and so we stay here and follow through on his ministries that he has given us to do. You know, Paul said it would be better to go home to be with the Lord, but since he loves the people that he was ministering to, since he loves the people in this world, he was willing to stay here. So that's at the very least the suffering that you have to do. The rule in our life is that Christians have to suffer. The exception is when we don't. So when bad things happen, we don't have to ask, why are these things happening to me? It's, why shouldn't they happen to me? You know, it's not a question of whether or not you deserve to have a happy life. It's a question of whether God has blessed you with one. There are many Christians in this world who are suffering, even as Christ suffered. Even today, more Christians died for their faith in the 20th century than in all of the other centuries put together. Christians are still dying for their faith. And if we are not suffering, it's because we've been blessed and we're very lucky. But who knows how long that luck can hold out. And Jesus tells us that we are born to suffer. Well, we are born again to suffer. The theme of this sermon, the theme of this chapter, as Jesus withdraws for a little while, is watching. Now, Mark has really not had a lot of teaching in his book. It's a lot of action, a lot of stories about what Jesus is doing. But there are two sections where he talks about teaching. The first one, the theme of that chapter was hearing. The theme of this chapter is watching. Watching where evil will materialize. It is going to crop up. It's going to come about in this world. Whether it is a hyper-nationalism that says country first, that says my country right or wrong and God is just taking a second place, or whether it is a false religion that says, oh, I am actually the way to heaven, or whether it is sacrilegious symbols that we'll talk about next week when we talk about the abomination of desolation. No, Ronnie, you got to sit up. Thank you. I know if everybody who slept in church were laid end to end, they'd be a lot more comfortable, but you can't do that. Now, if Arnie wants to do that, that's all right. I'm not going to tell him he can't. I'm going to find somebody who sleeps in church. You don't sleep that much, though, do you? No. Now he's going to stay awake because everybody's going to be watching him. But we have, there are lots of things and lots of ways that evil will materialize in this world, and we need to watch out for all of it. But Jesus is confident, even in the face of these horrible things that he is talking about, even in the face of wars and rumors of wars, in the face of false prophets, in the face of horrible things that are happening, Jesus is confident that God will bring us through. And we need to have that same kind of confidence. Even when when Christians are torn apart by Satan, we know that we will be gathered together by God. We need to know that God has it all under control, even though we have to watch out for the horrible things that are happening. And so we come to the first part of this chapter. The first thing that happens is that the disciples point out to Jesus this magnificent temple that they are looking at. They are across the valley and they are looking at the temple. And if it was in the morning, they would have seen all of the sunlight reflect off all of the gold that was in that building. And if it was some other time of the day, they could have looked at it and seen all the bright white of all of the marble and all of the rock that was there. It was a magnificent structure. But they are overawed by this because they have not been listening to what Jesus has said. It was a source of pride in their life. It was one of the wonders of the ancient world. It was a magnificent structure and huge outbuildings as well. It was a source of security for them because they had begun to believe, even though Jeremiah had warned them and they had realized that the Babylonians had trashed the temple and destroyed it, they had begun again to believe that the temple was a lucky rabbit's foot that would keep them safe from the Romans. As long as they had the temple, nothing could harm them. This is what they had begun to believe again. They had stopped believing in God, and this temple had become